Good evening, dear friend. Before we begin tonight, I want to ask you a gentle question. Have you ever felt so tired that even your soul seemed weary? Perhaps today carried more weight than you expected. Maybe your thoughts have followed you into the darkness of this evening, refusing to settle. Or perhaps there are burdens you have carried for so long that you no longer remember what it feels like to set them down. If that is where you find yourself tonight, then know this: you are in good company. Even one of God's greatest prophets reached a moment when his strength was gone. Even Elijah, the man who witnessed miracles, who spoke boldly before kings, and who called down fire from heaven, once sat beneath a lonely tree and asked God to let him rest forever. Yet the Lord did not meet Elijah with anger. He met him with kindness, with food, with water, with sleep, and later, with a whisper. Tonight, as we journey through the story of Elijah, we will move slowly through the valleys, the wilderness, the mountain paths, and the quiet places where God revealed his presence. So welcome. My name is your companion for this evening's meditation, and I am grateful that you have chosen to spend these peaceful moments here. As always, this is a place where we slow down, breathe deeply, listen to God's word, and rest in his presence. Our verse for tonight comes from 1 Kings chapter 19. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. Just a few simple words, yet they remind us that God often speaks most clearly when the world grows quiet. Now, if you are able, allow yourself to become comfortable. Set your phone aside. Let the room grow dim. Relax your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Feel the weight of the day beginning to loosen its grip. Notice the muscles around your eyes softening. Feel your arms becoming heavy, your hands resting, your legs relaxing, your whole body settling into a place of peace. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to accomplish tonight. You are safe here. Before we continue, I would love to know where in the world you are listening from tonight. If you feel comfortable, leave a comment sharing your location and what time it is where you are. And now, let us begin with a quiet prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us safely to the end of this day. For every listener resting here tonight, I ask that you surround them with your peace. Calm anxious thoughts, ease heavy hearts, bring comfort to those who are weary and strength to those who feel weak. As we listen to the story of Elijah, help us remember that your care never fails, even in the wilderness. Remind us that your presence remains near, even when we cannot see the path ahead. And as sleep slowly comes, may every worry be placed gently into your hands. For tonight and for every tomorrow, help us remember this simple truth: we are never alone. In Jesus' name, amen. As the night grows quieter around you, imagine yourself standing beneath a wide and cloudless sky. The air is dry. The earth beneath your feet feels cracked from months without rain. A gentle wind moves across the hills of ancient Israel, carrying dust instead of moisture. It is into this troubled land that Elijah first appears. There is no long introduction to his story, no account of his childhood, no description of where he came from beyond a simple statement. Suddenly, Elijah stands before King Ahab with a message from God. His voice is calm, but his words carry great weight. As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years, except at my word. And with those words, everything changes. The skies close, the rain disappears, the rivers begin to shrink, fields struggle beneath the relentless sun. Yet while the nation faces uncertainty, the Lord has already prepared a place for his servant. The word of the Lord comes to Elijah. Leave here, turn eastward and hide in the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan. So Elijah obeys. He leaves behind the noise of the city and travels into a quieter place, a hidden place, a place known only to God. Perhaps tonight you understand something about hidden places. There are seasons when life feels busy and crowded, but there are also seasons when God gently leads us away from the noise, not to abandon us, not to forget us, but to draw us closer to himself. As Elijah settles beside the brook, the days begin to pass slowly. Morning arrives. The sunlight warms the valley. The water continues its gentle flow. And then, something remarkable happens. Ravens appear, dark wings moving across the bright sky. They carry bread. They carry meat. Food arrives exactly when it is needed. Again in the evening, the birds return. Each day, God provides. Not months in advance, not years in advance. One day at a time, one meal at a time, one moment of grace after another. As you listen tonight, perhaps there is something in your own life that feels uncertain, something you cannot fully control, something you have worried about for longer than you intended. If so, let the image of Elijah resting beside the brook remain with you. The God who watched over Elijah is the same God who watches over you. The same God who sees every fear before it is spoken. The same God who knows every need before it appears. Take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Allow your thoughts to settle like calm water. The brook continues to flow beside Elijah. The ravens continue their faithful journeys, and the Lord continues his faithful care. Days become weeks, weeks become months. The rhythm remains steady, quiet, simple, safe. Yet eventually, the brook begins to shrink. The drought continues across the land. Little by little, the water grows shallower, until one day, the brook is dry. Time equals 1 second / greater than. For a moment, it would be easy to feel afraid, easy to wonder whether God's provision has come to an end. But God's care never ends when one season closes. Sometimes he simply leads us into the next chapter. And as Elijah stands beside the empty stream bed, the word of the Lord comes once again. Direction, guidance, hope. The journey is not over. God is still speaking. God is still leading, and God is still providing. As you rest here tonight, remember this gentle truth. Even when a brook dries up, even when circumstances change, even when the future feels unclear, the Lord remains faithful. You do not need to carry tomorrow tonight. Just rest. Let the worries of the day drift away. Let your breathing grow slower. Let your heart become lighter. And as Elijah prepares for the next step of his journey, allow yourself to rest in the quiet assurance that God's loving care has never left you. You are not alone. The brook is silent now. Where fresh water once flowed over smooth stones, only dry earth remains. The familiar sound that had accompanied Elijah through countless mornings has faded away. Yet Elijah does not panic. He has learned something besides this hidden stream. He has learned that God's provision is not tied to a place. The Lord who sent ravens can provide in another way. The Lord who cared for him yesterday will care for him tomorrow. And so, when God's voice comes again, Elijah listens. Go at once to Zarephath. The journey is long. Dust rises beneath his sandals as he travels through the sunlit countryside. The drought has touched everything. The fields are weary. The trees seem tired. Even the wind feels dry as it moves across the land. Eventually, Elijah reaches the gates of a small town. There, he notices a woman gathering sticks. She moves slowly, carefully, as though conserving what little strength remains. This is not a wealthy woman. This is not someone surrounded by abundance. She is a widow, alone. And like many others in the land, she has been struggling to survive. Elijah approaches her gently. Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink? The woman nods and begins to walk away. Then Elijah speaks once more. And please bring me a piece of bread. The request causes her to pause. For a moment, the weight of her situation becomes visible. She turns and answers honestly. As surely as the Lord your God lives, I don't have any bread. Only a handful of flour, only a little oil, only enough for one final meal, one final supper for herself and her son. After that, she sees no future, only emptiness. Only uncertainty. As you listen tonight, perhaps you understand that feeling. There are moments in life when resources seem small, when strength feels limited, when tomorrow appears hidden behind a curtain of questions. Yet it is often in such moments that God's faithfulness shines most clearly. Elijah looks at the widow with compassion, and then he speaks words that have comforted believers for generations. Do not be afraid. Not because the drought has ended, not because the circumstances have changed, but because God is present. Sometimes peace arrives before the miracle. Sometimes faith begins before we see the answer. The widow chooses to trust. She returns home, she prepares the bread, and something extraordinary begins to happen. The flour does not run out. The oil does not disappear. Day after day, there is enough. Not overflowing storehouses, not endless abundance, simply enough. Enough for today, enough for tomorrow, enough for the next day. A quiet miracle repeated again and again. Morning after morning, meal after meal, grace upon grace. Imagine the small home in the evening light, the gentle glow of a lamp. Time equals, quote, 0.5 seconds, quote, / greater than. The simple sounds of life continuing. A mother and her son eating together, Elijah resting nearby, and each day bringing fresh evidence that God has not forgotten them. Take a slow breath now. and allow that image to settle into your heart. Perhaps there is something you have been worrying about, a need, a burden, a future decision, a question that remains unanswered. For a moment, imagine placing it gently into God's hands. Not because you have all the answers, not because every fear has disappeared, but because the one who provided for Elijah and the widow is still faithful today. The jar was small, the oil was limited, yet God's care was greater than both. And His care is greater than whatever concerns you tonight. So let your thoughts grow quiet. Let your breathing slow. Feel the tension leaving your shoulders. The house in Zarephath rests peacefully beneath the evening sky. The lamp burns softly. The meal is prepared. The Lord has provided once again. And as sleep slowly draws nearer, remember these gentle words. Do not be afraid. You are not alone. For a time, life in the small house at Zarephath settles into a gentle rhythm. Each morning begins with gratitude. Each evening ends with provision. The jar of flour remains. The oil continues to flow. And day after day, the quiet miracle continues. Perhaps Elijah begins to feel a sense of peace there. The widow no longer faces each sunrise with despair. Her son laughs again. The home that once expected only sorrow has become a place of hope. But as we often discover in life, even peaceful seasons can be interrupted. One day, the boy becomes ill. At first, perhaps it seems minor, a fever, a weakness, a need for rest. But the sickness grows worse. Day after day, his strength fades. His breathing becomes shallow. His mother watches helplessly. Elijah watches helplessly. And then, the moment neither of them imagined arrives. The boy stops breathing. The house becomes silent. A silence heavier than words. A silence that settles into every corner of the room. The widow's heart breaks. She has already lost so much in life. Her husband, her security, her future. And now, it seems, she has lost her son as well. In her grief, she turns toward Elijah. Her words are filled with pain, questions, confusion. The kind of questions many people whisper when life becomes difficult. Why has this happened? Where is God in this moment? Why does sorrow arrive after hope has begun to grow? Perhaps tonight you have asked questions like these. Perhaps there are losses you still carry quietly, moments you do not fully understand, prayers that seemed unanswered. If so, know that God is never frightened by honest sorrow. He welcomes every tear, every question, every broken heart. Elijah gently reaches out. Give me your son. Carefully, he lifts the child into his arms. The house is still. The grieving mother remains below, and Elijah carries the boy upstairs to the room where he has been staying. There, in the quietness of that upper room, Elijah lays the child upon the bed. The prophet who once stood boldly before kings now kneels in private prayer. No crowds, no miracles performed before witnesses, only a grieving man speaking honestly with God. Lord my God, he cries, let this boy's life return to him. Again he prays, again he seeks the Lord. Again he places the impossible into God's hands. And then something wonderful happens. The Lord hears. Life returns. Breath fills the boy's lungs once more. Strength returns to his body. The child opens his eyes. The room that moments before held sorrow now overflows with joy. Imagine that quiet moment. The first breath, the first movement, the return of life where there had been none. Not because of Elijah's power, not because of human strength, but because God's compassion reaches places no one else can reach. Elijah lifts the boy into his arms once again. This time, he carries him downstairs. This time, hope walks beside him. The grieving mother looks up, and Elijah speaks simple words filled with wonder. "Look, your son is alive." Can you imagine her relief? The tears, the gratitude, the overwhelming realization that God had not abandoned her after all. Take a slow breath now and allow your heart to rest in this truth. Even when we cannot see what God is doing, He remains present. Even in seasons of loss, even in moments of uncertainty, even in places where hope seems to have disappeared. The Lord is still near. The Lord is still working. The Lord is still compassionate. Perhaps there is something tonight that feels impossible, a burden too heavy, a wound too deep, a situation beyond your control. You do not need to solve it right now. You do not need to carry it alone. Place it gently into His hands. Let the tension leave your body. Let your breathing become slow and steady. The house in Zarephath is quiet once more. A mother holds her son. A lamp flickers softly in the darkness. And God's faithfulness continues to shine. You are not alone. Not tonight. Not ever. Time passes. The drought continues across the land. The skies remain clear. The rivers remain low. And throughout Israel, people wonder when relief will finally come. 3 long years have passed since Elijah first spoke God's message to King Ahab. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of uncertainty. 3 years without rain. Then one day, the Lord speaks again. It is time. Elijah leaves the quiet refuge he has known and begins the journey toward Mount Carmel. The road stretches before him beneath the warm sunlight. In the distance, hills rise gently against the horizon. The air is still. The land waits. And perhaps, in a way, the hearts of the people are waiting too. For many years, Israel has been divided. Some follow the Lord. Others follow false gods. Many stand somewhere in between, uncertain which voice to trust. When Elijah arrives at Mount Carmel, a great gathering begins to form. People come from villages and towns throughout the nation. Prophets of Baal assemble together. King Ahab is there, and Elijah stands alone. At least, he appears to stand alone. But Elijah knows something important. A person is never truly alone when God is with them. As the crowd settles, Elijah steps forward. His voice is steady, his words are simple. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow Him. The people listen. The mountain grows quiet. Even the wind seems to pause. Then Elijah proposes a test. 2 altars will be prepared. 2 sacrifices will be placed upon them, but no fire will be lit. The prophets of Baal will pray. Elijah will pray. And the God who answers by fire will reveal Himself. The people agree. Soon the preparations begin. Stones are arranged. Wood is gathered. The sacrifices are placed upon the altars. The prophets of Baal begin first. Hour after hour they call out. Morning passes into midday. The sun climbs higher in the sky, yet nothing happens. No answer comes. No fire appears. Only silence. Eventually, Elijah steps forward. He kneels beside an altar that had once been broken. Patiently, he begins to rebuild it, one stone at a time. 12 stones in all, a reminder of God's covenant with his people. The work is careful, unhurried, almost peaceful. Then Elijah does something unexpected. He asks for water. Large jars are brought forward. Water is poured over the sacrifice, over the wood, over the altar itself, again and again and again. Soon, everything is soaked. Water fills the trench surrounding the altar. No one could mistake what happens next. If fire comes, it will be the work of God alone. As evening approaches, Elijah lifts his eyes toward heaven. His prayer is not long. It is not dramatic. It is simply sincere. Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God. And then it happens. Fire falls from heaven, brilliant, powerful, certain. The sacrifice is consumed. The wood is consumed. Even the stones seem touched by God's power. The gathered people fall to the ground. A single cry rises from the mountain. The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. Imagine that moment for a moment tonight. Not the fire, not the spectacle, but the certainty. The certainty that God had never left his people. The certainty that he still saw them, still loved them, still called them back to himself. Sometimes we long for that same certainty. We long to know that God is near. We long to know that our prayers are heard. Yet often the greatest miracle is not the fire from heaven. It is the faithful presence of God through every season of life. Take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Allow the noise of the day to drift away. Let your thoughts become still. The sun is beginning to set over Mount Carmel. The crowds are growing quiet. The evening air cools, and deep within your heart, perhaps you can rest in this simple truth. The Lord is God. He sees you. He knows you. And tonight, as always, you are not alone. As evening settles over Mount Carmel, the excitement of the day begins to fade. The crowds slowly disperse. The voices grow quieter. The shadows lengthen across the hills. Yet one promise remains unfulfilled. The land is still dry. The drought has not yet ended. The people have witnessed fire from heaven, but they are still waiting for rain. Elijah stands upon the mountain and gazes toward the distant horizon. Somewhere beyond the hills lies the great sea. Its waters stretch far beyond sight, and somewhere beyond that horizon, God is preparing an answer. The prophet turns to King Ahab. His voice is calm. There is the sound of a heavy rain. It is a remarkable statement. The sky is clear, no clouds are visible, no thunder can be heard. No rain has yet begun to fall, and still Elijah speaks with confidence. Not because he can see the answer, but because he trusts the one who gave the promise. Perhaps tonight you are waiting for something as well. A prayer, a healing, a breakthrough, a door to open, a burden to lift. And perhaps, like Elijah, you cannot yet see any evidence that the answer is coming. Even so, faith often begins before sight. Elijah climbs higher upon the mountain. The evening breeze brushes softly against his face. He kneels low to the ground. The world around him grows quiet. Then he tells his servant, "Go and look toward the sea." The servant obeys. He climbs to a higher point and scans the horizon. A few moments later, he returns. There is nothing. Only sky, only distance, only emptiness. Yet Elijah is not discouraged. Again, he says, "Go back." The servant returns to the lookout. Again, he searches. Again, he finds nothing. The cycle continues. One journey, then another, and another. The mountain grows quieter as the sun slowly sinks toward the horizon. The waiting continues. The answer remains unseen. For a brief moment, imagine standing there beside them. The warm stone beneath your feet, the gentle wind moving through the evening air, the vast horizon stretching endlessly before you. And still, no cloud appears. This is often how faith feels. Quiet, patient, steady, trusting even when the evidence has not yet arrived. At last, on the 7th journey, the servant stops. He squints into the distance. Far away, almost hidden against the horizon, something catches his eye. A tiny cloud, small, delicate, barely larger than a human hand. Many people would overlook it. Many would dismiss it. But Elijah smiles, because sometimes God's answers begin small. A tiny step, a tiny change, a tiny sign of hope. And that small cloud is enough. The prophet knows the promise is already on its way. Soon the sky begins to change. The first clouds gather. The breeze strengthens. The air feels different, cooler, full of anticipation. And before long, the heavens open. Rain begins to fall across the thirsty land. Imagine the sound. Soft drops striking the earth, dust settling, dry fields drinking deeply, life returning once more. After years of waiting, the rain has finally arrived. Take a slow breath now and gently release it. Allow the image of that rain to wash over your thoughts. Perhaps there are things in your life that still feel unfinished. Perhaps answers have not yet arrived. Perhaps you are still waiting. If so, remember the small cloud on the horizon. Remember that God's work often begins quietly, silently, almost unnoticed. Yet His faithfulness never fails. You do not need to force tomorrow into today. You do not need to solve every problem tonight. Let it go now. The rain has come. The earth is at peace. The mountain rests beneath the darkening sky. And as your body grows heavier and your mind becomes still, allow yourself to rest in the gentle assurance that God is working, even when you cannot yet see the whole picture. You are still held in His care. You are not alone. The rain has returned. The long drought is over. The earth drinks deeply from the blessing it has awaited for years. From the distance, everything appears victorious. The fire on Mount Carmel, the return of rain, the people turning back toward God. It seems like the perfect ending. But life is often more complicated than it appears. Even after great victories, exhaustion can quietly remain. Even after answered prayers, a weary heart can still struggle. And this is where we find Elijah. Not standing triumphantly on a mountain, not surrounded by celebration, but alone. Very alone. News of Mount Carmel soon reaches Queen Jezebel. When she hears what has happened, anger fills her heart. She sends a message to Elijah, a threat, a promise that his life will soon be taken. And suddenly, the brave prophet who stood before hundreds now feels overwhelmed. Fear settles over him. Weariness rises within him. The strength he has carried for so long begins to disappear. So Elijah runs, far from the crowds, far from the conflict, far into the wilderness. Imagine that lonely journey. The rain clouds have passed, the roads are quiet, the landscape stretches endlessly beneath the sky. Each step feels heavier than the one before, not because Elijah lacks faith, but because he is human, just as you are, just as all of us are. Sometimes we become tired in ways sleep alone cannot fix. Sometimes our hearts become weary. Sometimes we carry burdens for so long that we forget what it feels like to rest. Elijah finally comes to a solitary broom tree. Its branches offer a small patch of shade beneath the desert sun. There he sits, and for the first time, all of the weight he has been carrying spills out before God. No polished prayer, no dramatic speech, only honesty. Raw and exhausted honesty. I have had enough, Lord. Perhaps those words sound familiar, not because you have spoken them exactly, but because there may have been moments when you felt something similar. Moments when responsibilities felt overwhelming. Moments when grief seemed too heavy. Moments when your strength felt completely spent. The beautiful truth of this story is that God does not reject Elijah in that moment. He does not scold him. He does not lecture him. He does not demand more effort. Instead, God responds with compassion. Elijah lies down beneath the tree, and he falls asleep. What a gentle gift. Sleep, rest, stillness. The very things many hearts long for tonight. As Elijah sleeps, an angel comes near. A gentle touch awakens him. Get up and eat. Beside him is fresh bread, a jar of water. Simple provisions, nothing extravagant, just exactly what he needs. Elijah eats, he drinks, and then he lies down again. Sometimes God's first answer is not a miracle. Sometimes it is rest. Sometimes healing begins with a pause. Sometimes the most spiritual thing a weary soul can do is simply sleep. The angel returns a second time. Again there is kindness. Again there is care. Again there is provision. Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. Notice those words. The journey is too much for you. God understands human limits. He understands exhaustion. He understands weakness. He understands what you are carrying tonight. Take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Feel your shoulders relax. Allow your jaw to soften. Let your hands become heavy. You do not need to prove your strength right now. You do not need to solve tomorrow before morning arrives. You do not need to carry every burden alone. You don't need to carry it anymore. Place it gently into his hands. The desert grows quiet around Elijah. The stars begin appearing overhead. The night air becomes cool and still. And there, beneath the broom tree, cared for by the God who sees every weakness and every tear, Elijah begins to recover. Not through striving, not through effort, but through grace. The same grace that surrounds you tonight. The same grace that whispers gently to every weary heart. Rest now. You are safe. you are cared for. And even here, in the quiet darkness, you are not alone. Strengthened by the food God provided, Elijah continues his journey. Day after day, he travels through lonely wilderness paths. The landscape is vast and quiet. Mountains rise in the distance. The desert stretches beneath endless skies. During the day, the sun warms the earth. At night, countless stars shine overhead. And through it all, Elijah walks. 40 days, 40 nights. A long journey, carried by grace. Eventually, he arrives at Horeb, the mountain of God. It is an ancient place, a sacred place, a place where generations before him had encountered the presence of the Lord. There, Elijah finds a cave, a quiet shelter carved into the mountainside. The world outside grows still as evening approaches. The wind moves softly through the rocks. The sky darkens, and Elijah settles into the silence. Perhaps tonight you can imagine sitting there with him, far from the noise of daily life, far from expectations, far from responsibilities. Only silence, only stillness, only space to breathe. Yet even here, Elijah carries questions within his heart. The exhaustion has not fully disappeared. The memories of fear still linger. The loneliness remains. And so, when the Lord speaks, he asks a simple question. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" The question is not asked in anger. It is not a rebuke. It is an invitation. An invitation to speak honestly. And Elijah does. He pours out everything he has been carrying. The disappointments, the fears, the loneliness. The feeling that he is the only one left. The feeling that the burden has become too heavy. Perhaps there are things you carry quietly as well. Thoughts you rarely share. Concerns hidden beneath the surface. Worries that follow you into the darkness when the day finally ends. The beautiful thing about God's presence is that nothing needs to be hidden. He already knows. He already sees. And he welcomes us exactly as we are. Then the Lord invites Elijah to step outside the cave. Slowly, Elijah walks toward the entrance. The night air brushes against his face. The mountain stands silent beneath the heavens. And suddenly, a powerful wind begins to blow. The force of it rushes through the mountains. Rocks crack. Dust swirls through the air. The sound echoes across the wilderness. Yet the scriptures tell us something remarkable. The Lord was not in the wind. Then comes an earthquake. The ground trembles beneath Elijah's feet. The mountain shakes. The earth groans with power. Yet once again, the Lord is not in the earthquake. After the earthquake comes fire. Light dances across the darkness. The mountain glows. The flames flicker and move. Yet the Lord is not in the fire either. One by one, the dramatic displays pass away. The wind fades. The shaking stops. The flames disappear. And then something unexpected happens. Silence. Deep silence. Gentle silence. The kind of silence that settles softly over everything. And within that silence comes a whisper. Not a shout, not a command, not thunder from heaven. A whisper, a gentle voice, a quiet presence. Imagine that moment now. The mountain completely still, the stars overhead, the cool air surrounding you, and the loving presence of God drawing near. How often we expect God to appear in the extraordinary, yet sometimes he comes in the quietest moments, in a peaceful prayer, in a gentle reminder, in a calm sense of comfort we cannot fully explain, in the stillness of an evening like this. Take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Allow your thoughts to grow quieter. Allow your body to relax more deeply. You do not need to search for God in the noise. You do not need to chase him through chaos. His presence is already near, closer than you realize. The whisper that reached Elijah still speaks today, a whisper of grace, a whisper of comfort, a whisper of love. And perhaps, as sleep begins to draw near, you can hear it too. You are known. You are cared for. You are deeply loved. And no matter what season you are walking through, you are not alone. The mountain is quiet once more. The wind has faded. The fire is gone. The whisper has spoken. And in that sacred stillness, Elijah receives something he has been needing for a very long time. Not merely direction, not merely answers, but reassurance. For so long, Elijah had believed he was alone. The burden had seemed entirely his to carry. The responsibility had felt endless. Yet God gently reveals a different reality. There are still faithful people throughout the land. There are still hearts devoted to him. There are still stories unfolding beyond Elijah's sight. The prophet is not alone, after all. And perhaps that is a truth many of us need to hear tonight. Sometimes our struggles make us feel isolated. Sometimes fear convinces us that nobody understands. Sometimes we look at our circumstances and believe we are carrying them by ourselves. But God sees a much larger picture than we do. He sees every person, every prayer, every hidden act of faith, every quiet heart seeking him. And he reminds Elijah that the story is far from over. A new chapter is about to begin. As dawn arrives over the wilderness, Elijah leaves Horeb behind. The journey continues. The morning air is cool. Golden sunlight slowly spills across the hills. Birds begin their songs among the distant trees. The world feels calm, renewed, hopeful. Step by step, Elijah follows the path God has placed before him. There is no hurry, no rush, only faithful obedience. Eventually, his travels bring him to a fertile valley. Fields stretch across the landscape. The earth here is rich and productive. The drought that once dominated the story feels far away. In the distance, Elijah notices a man working in the fields. He is guiding a team of oxen across the soil, back and forth, row after row, steady, patient, faithful in ordinary work. His name is Elisha. At this moment, Elisha has no idea that his life is about to change. To him, it seems like an ordinary day, a day much like any other. Yet God often works through ordinary moments. A simple conversation, a chance meeting, a quiet invitation. Sometimes the turning points of our lives arrive without warning. Elijah walks toward him. No grand announcement, no dramatic speech, only a simple act. The prophet places his cloak upon Elisha's shoulders. A symbol, a calling, a passing of responsibility. A reminder that God's work will continue into the next generation. Imagine that moment. The warm sunlight, the gentle breeze moving across the fields, the smell of fresh earth, and a young man realizing that God is inviting him into something greater than he ever imagined. Elisha immediately senses the importance of the moment. His heart responds. His future begins to unfold before him. And Elijah discovers something beautiful as well. The journey was never meant to be walked alone. God has provided a companion, a student, a friend, someone who will walk beside him in the years ahead. Take a slow breath now, and allow this scene to settle gently into your thoughts. How often does God provide encouragement just when it is needed most? How often does He place people along our path at exactly the right moment? Perhaps there are individuals in your own life who have brought comfort, wisdom, or strength during difficult seasons. Perhaps there are people praying for you right now without your knowledge. Perhaps there are blessings already moving toward you that you cannot yet see. The fields grow quiet as evening approaches. The work of the day comes to an end. Elijah and Elisha begin walking together beneath the soft light of the setting sun. One generation beside another. One faithful servant beside another. And through it all, God's plans continue moving forward with perfect care. As your breathing grows slower and your body becomes heavier with rest, remember this gentle truth. God is always preparing what comes next. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to trust the one who guides it. And wherever that path may lead, you have never walked it alone. You are not alone. Years pass quietly. Elijah and Elisha travel together through towns, valleys, and winding roads. They pray together. They teach together. They witness God's faithfulness together. And as time moves gently forward, a day arrives unlike any other. Though few understand its significance, Elijah knows. The season of his earthly journey is drawing to a close. The morning begins peacefully. The sky is clear. The air is cool and calm. Elijah and Elisha walk side by side along familiar paths. There is no fear in Elijah's heart, no rushing, no resistance. Only a quiet confidence that God remains in control. Several times along the journey, Elijah gently encourages Elisha to remain behind, but each time, Elisha lovingly refuses. As surely as the Lord lives, I will not leave you. And so, they continue together. Eventually, they arrive at the Jordan River. The water flows steadily beneath the sunlight. The gentle sound of the current fills the air. Elijah removes his cloak and rolls it tightly in his hands. Then, he strikes the water. Immediately, the river parts. The waters separate to the left and to the right. A pathway appears before them, and together, they walk across on dry ground. Imagine the stillness of that moment. The shining water on either side. The quiet footsteps. The peaceful certainty that God is leading every step. When they reach the other side, Elijah turns toward Elisha. There is warmth in his voice. What would you like me to do for you before I am taken away? Elisha's answer comes from the deepest place in his heart. He does not ask for wealth. He does not ask for honor. Instead, he asks for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. A heart fully devoted to God. A life marked by faithfulness. A desire to continue the work that has begun. As they continue walking together, something extraordinary happens. Suddenly, a brilliant chariot of fire appears. Horses of fire shine with heavenly light. The scene is glorious beyond words. Yet even here, there is peace. No chaos, no fear. Only the unmistakable presence of God. A whirlwind begins to rise. The wind moves around them. The heavens seem to open, and Elijah is carried upward, higher and higher, into the care of the God he has faithfully served throughout his life. Elisha watches, his eyes filled with wonder, his heart filled with gratitude. For a moment, the sky itself seems to glow with divine beauty. Then the whirlwind fades. The silence returns, and Elijah is gone. Yet the story does not end. His cloak remains behind, a simple reminder that God's work continues, God's faithfulness continues, God's presence continues. Elisha gently picks up the cloak. The journey moves forward. A new chapter begins. Take a slow breath now and let your thoughts become still. The Jordan River flows quietly beneath the evening sky. Time equals, quote, 0.5 seconds, quote, / greater than. The stars begin appearing above. The wind grows soft once more. And the story of Elijah leaves us with a beautiful reminder. Lives change. Seasons pass. Journeys come to an end. But God's love remains. His faithfulness remains. His presence remains. And as you drift closer to sleep tonight, rest in this comforting truth. You have never walked alone. You are not alone. And you never will be. And now, dear friend, our journey through the story of Elijah is coming gently to its end. The mountains have grown quiet. The rivers flow peacefully beneath the stars. The winds have settled. The long road we traveled together tonight is now resting beneath the soft light of heaven. As you lie here, perhaps feeling a little more relaxed than before, allow these simple truths to settle deeply into your heart. You are safe. You are loved. You are not alone. No matter what today has held, no matter what tomorrow may bring, no matter what burdens you have carried into this night, you are safe. You are loved. You are not alone. The same God who cared for Elijah beside the brook watches over you tonight. The same God who provided for the widow sees every need within your life. The same God who spoke through the gentle whisper remains close to you even now. His presence surrounds you. His peace covers you. His love remains constant. So before sleep fully takes you, let us end with a quiet blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He calm every anxious thought. May He bring rest to your mind, peace to your heart, and comfort to your soul. May His presence remain beside your bed throughout the night. May His grace carry you through every challenge that awaits tomorrow. And may you awaken refreshed, strengthened, and deeply aware that you are held in His loving care. If this quiet space helped you tonight, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who may need peace and comfort before sleep. And if you have a prayer request on your heart, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Many people in this community would be honored to pray with you. And subscribe if you would like to continue resting in God's Word with us night after night. Your presence here is a blessing, and I am grateful you chose to spend this time with us. Tomorrow night, we'll continue this gentle journey together. But for now, there is nothing left to do Nothing left to accomplish. Nothing left to carry. The day is finished. The night is peaceful. The stars shine quietly above. Take one final slow breath in and gently breathe out. Feel your body becoming heavier. Feel your thoughts drifting farther away. Let every concern become smaller. Let every worry fade into the distance. Rest now. Rest deeply. Rest peacefully. The Lord is near. The Lord is watching over you. The Lord is giving His beloved sleep. Good night, dear friend. Sleep peacefully. Sleep deeply. And remember, you are safe. You are loved. You are not alone. Good night. Amen.